Hello Internet! In our last Trumpet Talk we had Hans Marius from Norway, and now we go to a very different part of the world, to New Zealand. Today we will talk to Vaughn Roberts, an accomplished trumpet player and arranger from New Zealand. And you will have to watch the whole video to find out what other instrument he enjoys playing. It's bass guitar. But you will have to watch the whole video to find out how I found his music and arrangements by watching Koržica. But you will have to watch the whole video anyway. Snow Angel. Oh, it's cold. I hate this. I hate my life. Hi, and thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
It's my pleasure.
Tell us about your career a little bit, and about where you studied, and what slice of music you prefer.
Okay, well, I grew up in New Zealand, and I studied trumpet and different kinds of music through my teenage years. And basically, I enjoyed playing and learning all kinds of music, jazz, classical music. I started playing in a brass band, a community band. And when I finished high school, I studied law for 3 years. And at that point, I decided I wasn't going to be a lawyer, but I really wanted to, study music. And I got quite interested in jazz. I listened to the music of Clifford Brown, and that really struck a chord with me. And I decided I wanted to learn more about improvisation, jazz composition. And that led me to go and study in the United States, where I went for 7 years. I studied at the University of North Texas in Dallas, which is the largest jazz program in the world. And it's also the first university in the world to give a degree in jazz performance. And it was an incredible experience. And there I studied jazz music, classical music, composition, lots of different instruments. It was really a fascinating place to be. And I ended up performing with the top jazz band at the school, which has been nominated for now 8 or 9 Grammy Awards.
Wow.
The 1 O'Clock Lab Band. It's kind of a big deal. And we visited jazz festivals in Europe. We played at the Molde Jazz Festival in Norway and the Pori Jazz Festival in Finland. And I got to play in that band with some amazing guest artists like Tim Hagens and Jim McNeely, great piano player from New York. So yeah, that's a little bit about my study and my background that way.
When was the exact point, if you can pinpoint it in time, when you said, you know what, I want to be a musician?
I think I always knew that music was a huge part of my life, but I did have a moment when during the time that I was studying law, I went on a tour with a brass band to Australia, and I went to a pop concert by a famous New Zealand / Australian band. New Zealand and Australians, they like to fight over who owns stuff, kind of like Romania and Hungary. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went to this concert by a band called Dragon, which is a big deal down in Australasia. And at that moment, I knew. I was like, this law thing is not for me. I really wanted to do music. And so I finished out a degree in history and English literature, so that I didn't go out of the academics with absolutely nothing. But at that point, I realized I want to immerse myself in music, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Cool. Now you have concerts in Romania, yes, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I've been living in Romania for 4 years now. I met my girlfriend, who was Romanian, when I was working on Norwegian Cruise Line. And during my time in the United States studying at the University in North Texas, one of the problems that I had was, how do I make money? Because I was an international student and you're not supposed to work in the United States. So I could get around that by going to work on cruise ships. And I was able to make tax-free American dollars, visit exotic locations, play music on my vacations from school. So it was a win-win situation. And after I finished studying in the United States, I went to work on ships for a while. And I've been on and off cruise ships, most of my career. And during one of my contracts, I met my girlfriend, who's Romanian. So I came to Romania 4 years ago, about 8 months before the pandemic, which was not a good time really to arrive, because right when I got things kind of rolling and I started to meet people and things were looking good, everything got cancelled. And so it's been a challenging time here, but now I have some gigs coming up, and I do a lot of different things here in Romania. I play with a lot of really talented musicians, and also I'm doing a lot of writing, a lot of composing and arranging stuff, which is sort of is fundamental to what I do now as my trumpet playing.
Nice. That's how I got to see you first time, because I used to work in Târgu Mureș, and you had some concerts there with Kojika.
Yeah.
And everybody, my ex-colleagues from the Philharmonics and the trumpet players from there, are like, dude, you have to see this guy. This guy is amazing. You have to see. And I'm
Thank you.
What? Where? How? What? And I'm like, I have to say your arrangements for those traditional songs from Transylvania is very, very nice. It's a very different type of perspective you have over those, with all these orchestral jazz arrangement. It's very nice. So
thank you.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Well, that sort of came about because when the pandemic was in full swing, there were no gigs, there was nothing much to do. So as most musicians, I put in the time writing and creating new things. But it's been very interesting living here in Romania and embracing musica populară, românească și maghiară, learning the different musical languages. And I find it very fascinating, because one of your earlier questions was, what is your favorite kind of thing? And I really don't have one. It just depends on what I'm playing at any given time. So I think it's fascinating, the musical legacy here. There's a very strong classical music tradition in Romania.
It is.
And very strong populara music, folk music tradition, both Hungarian, Romanian, and Gypsy. So yeah, that's been a very interesting learning process for me, and manipulating those different styles with my own background, which, as I explained, coming from the world's first and biggest jazz program, I learned a lot about jazz there. So yeah, mixing it all together and making something fresh out of it.
Nice, very nice. You traveled a lot, and you got to know several cultures from inside. So, what would be for you, from the perspective of a trumpet player, the difference between those? Because for me, for example, growing up in Romania, as you say, with a strong classical music culture, the focus on that is mostly on strings instruments, not on the brass.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came to Norway, it was a big shock because here everybody played brass instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has somewhere a brass band, a marching band, mixed with the woodwinds. But it's a very typical thing. But in Romania, it's not.
No.
No. So how is your uh, perception of this, and compare it with US with?
Well, I guess it goes back to what you said about the fact that I've involved myself in the composing and arranging side for classical music, because that's what really dominates here, aside from the populare music, which doesn't often include brass music, although there are some incredible brass players. There's a guy called Christy Tractor. I don't know if you're familiar with Christy Tractor, but
No, I'm not.
he's his technique is unbelievable. I was at a gig and somebody said, you're as good as Christy Tractor, and I was like, who the hell is he? And when I listened to him, I don't have anything like the technique that this guy has. And but yeah, I would agree with your assessment of the situation here in Romania. There are some very strong brass players and good classical musicians, but it is very lacking in the jazz department. It's almost like a barren landscape. There are some exceptional jazz musicians, but not very many. And the problem is education. There really isn't much education in that field. So one thing that I've been endeavoring to do with my projects here is to show people what my experiences and the traditions that I've come from learning in the United States, and things are getting stronger in New Zealand as well. They have some very good music schools there. I was just back in New Zealand for 4 months, and one of the local big bands was doing a tour with 3 incredible drummers, and I was privileged to be able to write music for 2 of them, Dennis Chambers and Greg Bissonette, who and the 3rd drummer was Peter Erskine. So these 3 drummers are touring with a local big band and just sounding like the best combination anywhere in the world, So I miss that here in Romania, but what I'm attempting to do is just do my thing. I want to do my thing and contribute however I can. And one of the projects that I have coming up is I'm going to be starting music on a movie soundtrack within the next month. Nice. For a local feature film, and using musicians from here in Mureș in this region. So, and then I have another Transylvanian Symphonic Tales gig coming up in June with the local orchestra, doing the populare arrangements for orchestra, yes. Kozica in the band. So that's exciting. And I think a creative person can make stuff happen in a small town in Norway, in a small town in Romania, in a small town in New Zealand, and find other creative people and get stuff happening.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Quick questions.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Is there a piece of gear that is totally irreplaceable for you?
I would say no. When it comes to equipment, I'm very standard. I play a Bach Stradivarius 43, medium large, and I've played that for 25 or 30 years. I play a GR mouthpiece, which is the equivalent of a Bach 3C. I play a Getzini Turner flugelhorn, which I've had since I was 18 years old. I'm not a gear freak. I don't experiment very much. I find something that I'm comfortable with, but I find something that I'm comfortable with and I stick with it. So I wouldn't say that anything is irreplaceable.
What would be an advice you would give to a young person starting to play trumpet?
Practice every day. Get on a regular schedule. Listen to your teachers. Listen to as many different kinds of music as you can. Don't think that any is any better than any other.
Yes.
And something that your traditional classical teachers may not instruct you to do so much, that I think is vital, is transcribe. Listen to music and figure it out for yourself as much as you can, because this will develop your own musical personality. There's nothing wrong with listening to other musicians and really picking apart what they do and emulating them, which was how I learned the most. One of them, the big influences on me when I was a kid was Wynton Marsalis. When I heard Wynton Marsalis, I just thought, this guy is from another planet. But I remember a specific moment. I remember watching the 1983, maybe it was 1984 Grammy Awards. And Wynton came along and he played the third movement of the Hummel Trumpet Concerto. And then he played Stardust with a string orchestra. And it just proved to me that it's no such thing as just playing one style. You can play whatever you want. It's what you choose to play.
I'm very glad to hear that, because when I grew up, this was a typical thing for the classical teachers to say, don't play jazz, it will ruin your lick. Don't learn jazz because it will ruin your technique, it will ruin your style. And then you see Wynton Marsalis topping everybody in everything, and you're like, what? Because all those people who play classical and say don't play jazz cannot get even close to what this jazz player play in classical.
Yeah, and the thing for me is the different styles of music is just an accent. It's just a different accent. I come to Romania, and I'm playing with musicians who can speak English very well, Romanian extremely well, and Hungarian even better. And then they can also speak a bit of French, a bit of Spanish, and it's like somebody saying, don't speak Hungarian. It's a foreign language. The more languages that you can speak, the more fluent you are, the more you can express yourself. So for me, and I'm going to take it a step further and say, it's not just about the trumpet for me. I spend a lot of time working on different instruments, because as a composer and an arranger, I need to know how those instruments work. So right now, I'm immersed in the piano keyboard. I'm learning sonatas by Beethoven and waltzes by Chopin and preludes by Bach, so that I can learn that musical language, because as a composer, I need to know how it works. I love to play the bass. I used to play acoustic bass. It's very tough. It's an instrument which requires a lot of chops, like the trumpet does. But now I play some electric bass, and I love to play jazz on bass, because it gives you a different perspective. And I think the more perspectives that you have, the better you are. I mean, as a trumpet player, you can't get away from the fact, as I said, my first piece of advice, practice every day. Every day, I go up to the forest. My girlfriend lives in an apartment, and I can't practice the trumpet here in the apartment. So I go to the forest, and I practice every day in the outdoors, and I do my warm-ups. I do the Alan Vizzuti. I do the Arturo Sandoval warm-up. I do the Earl Irons warm-up. I alternate. Each day I do a different warm-up. And then I play some etudes, things like Charlier or Marcel Biche or Vern Reynolds, different etudes, and I make sure that I have a routine to keep my, not the chops so much, but just the air and the general flow. As a trumpet player, you've got to keep the flow going.
Yeah, I heard something similar from an interview with what's his name, Roy Hargrove, saying that this is the most unforgiven instrument, because if you leave it one day, it leaves you two.
I was just telling my girlfriend the old trumpet saying. I think Doc Severinsen used to say this. He said, if you take a day off practicing, nobody notices. If you take 2 days off practicing, you notice. You take 3 days off practicing, everybody notices.
Yeah. I said the quick questions, but I lied. What would be an advice you would give to your younger self if you would go back in time? And
I would say I should have learned more piano. I really wish that I'd taken piano lessons as a kid. I've always been not self-taught, but I'd like to learn things myself. I had a fantastic teacher at the University of North Texas who sadly passed away from COVID a couple of years ago. His name was Keith Johnson. He was an incredible teacher, and I've had many great trumpet, cornet teachers, but I wish that I'd gotten some stronger keyboard chops. But from a trumpet perspective, the thing about practicing every day and getting in a routine, that's another thing that as my younger self I could have done a little bit better, I think. I really learned a lot of discipline playing on the cruise ships, because when you work on a cruise ship, you play 7 days a week. Sometimes you play 4 or 5 hours a day, and you're the only trumpet player. It's not like playing in an orchestra where you'll play a few measures and there's 2 other trumpet players. No, it's a really tough job. So I learned a lot about discipline there. And if you really want to be successful on the trumpet, you have to take it pretty seriously. You've got to put in the hours. But I think you also have to be very relaxed about it. Tension is a killer. As a trumpet player, nothing is going to make your job tougher than being stressed out and tense. So you've got to have fun with it. You've got to be relaxed, but you have to take it seriously.
Thank you so much. Last question.
Sure.
Top 5 albums you would have to have on a desert island.
Trumpet related ones, or
maybe yes. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't have to be.
Well, okay. I would have to have some Clifford Brown because he's my man, and probably Study in Brown by Clifford Brown would be one. I'm a huge Stevie Wonder fan. He's just a genius. I rate him up there with Miles Davis and Louis Armstrong, and he's had some great horn sections with his band. I got to see Stevie Wonder twice live in concert, so I would take Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder with me. I love Michael and Randy Brecker. I think they're incredible. And I got to see the return of the Brecker brothers, so I would take that album with me. 2 more. I'm just going to go with my my pop instinct, and I would take some Sting. I love Sting, and one of my most recent revelations from getting involved in orchestral work composition and arranging is I've been studying the music of Shostakovich, and I really have a huge respect for his music, the symphonies and the string quartets, but classic Symphony No. 5 by Shostakovich. Some really tough trumpet playing in there, from the really low register to extreme, high stuff, and just so much drama, and also so much something that people miss with Shostakovich is his sense of humor. He was actually a very funny guy as well as being very serious. So there you go, some Clifford Brown, Stevie Wonder, some Sting, some Shostakovich, some Brecker brothers, bit of everything.
That's very nice. Thank you again very much.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the gigs. If you give me, I will put the schedule of your gigs in the description of the video, and yeah,
no problem. If anybody feels like reaching out to me, there's a contact on my, you can get in contact through my website, or if they have any other questions or just want to say hi or whatever, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again for the invitation to come on your channel. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
That's it.